Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of our indie show. Tonight we are talking Fables Volumes 2 and 3. And I have my same panel back with me from the first episode that we talked about Fables Volume 1. First up, we got Sharon and Rena. What's going on, gang?
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I am doing good. How are you guys doing tonight?
We are fabulous. Thank you so much.
Nice. So, how far has Rena spoiled herself by just cheating and reading the end of things and not reading them?
Yeah, I may have cheated and read 4 already. So,
yeah. So, did you read these from beginning to end, or did you cheat reading these too?
I did not.
You did too.
I read
Okay.
them.
She hadn't even read them. She gets home from work, and I'm like, "Have you read Fables yet?"
I'm like, yes,
and
I'm
she's
reading
like,
them.
"I'm reading them right now, Mom." So yeah, she cut a little tight. But then
And of course, went ahead and read 4.
Yeah, I ordered 4 already. So she was already like, "Hey, Mom, did you know on this page?" I'm like, "Zip it, zip it, zip, zip, zip."
All right. Also joining us tonight is one of our 2 giant Fables fans. First up, we got the Unruly Simeon. What's going on, man?
What's up, yo? I just want to do this and say, this is my prediction.
Oh, yeah. Mine too. That was actually the one that's the one I was going to predict too. So, now, Unruly, you said you were inspired by rereading these and that you just kept going this weekend. How far did you get?
Halfway through 13.
Volume 13. So, yeah, we're doing 2 and 3. He made it halfway.
I'm not so bad.
He's already read the whole thing.
And
I've read the whole thing twice. If they when they put this out in omnibuses, I'm sure somebody would love to have my trades because I'll gobble up the omnis.
Nice. And then our final guest of the evening is our birthday boy. What's going on, John? How goes it?
Hello, everybody, and I'm really only going to be talking to the 3 people on this side over here. I'm going to kind of ignore that guy for the most part. But I honestly, JP joked when you asked what day specifically we're doing this on, you clearly knew it was your birthday. You could have said something, and I was like, well, there's nothing better than to spend time with friends and talk about Fables. Come on, man.
Speaking of which,
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, we do have something that needs to happen before we start getting into Fables.
Yes.
And I'm going to let Sharon and Rena take the lead on this. So,
all right, are you guys ready?
I think we're ready.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dolly. Happy
birthday to you.
That's hilarious. If JP gets a copyright strike for happy birthday, we're all in trouble.
Oh, well,
Yeah, but we did it lethal weapon style.
You did.
Oh.
I noticed.
All right. Well, now before we got that out of the way. We got the birthday boy taken care of. So let's check out the chat. We had Comic Books NYC. Cobby was hanging out early. He was tailgating. What's going on? He said he's only made it through Volume 2. So when we get into Volume 3, he's going to bail on us, but that's okay. Backseat Driver, what's going on, man? Let's see. Magic Lasso, thank you for joining us. What's going on? We got Unruly's hanging out in the chat. Discovery Bay, Disco. Disco. So, what's going on, JB? Let's see. Anybody else? Gorvindal, what's going on? Thank you for hanging out. So, but Sharon's abandoned us. Oh, there she is.
I was just getting rid of her dinner plate for her.
There you go. So, I think the question of the day, what does JP think? I think because Sharon has been chomping at the bit because I would not tell you guys if I
know. I've been butthurt all week.
Because I wouldn't give her spoilers on what I thought. We know.
Well, not only did you not give me spoilers, but you were like, yes, no. You wouldn't even give me sentences. I was just
because I didn't want to give you hints.
It was torture, I tell you, torture.
I will say that of the volume ones I read that I've been reading so far, Fables was probably my least favorite of the volume ones that I've read. I enjoyed these immensely more than I enjoyed volume 1. So these were, I consider these. I felt like 2 still had a few of the issues that Volume 1 had that kind of bothered me, but by 3, I was really enjoying the story. So I'm much more on board now than I was. Thanks. So we'll get that out of the way.
So there will be no riots.
There'll be no riots. John will not hunt me down and beat some sense into me. Maybe. So. What about you guys? We'll start with Sharon and Rena. You guys started. What were your thoughts of Volume 2 and Volumes 3, just kind of generally before we dig into them individually?
I despised number 2. I absolutely hated it. I liked 1 and I hated 2. I hated it bad. Even the animals are jerks.
Yeah.
3 snapped me back around, and I really, really enjoyed 3 a great deal. And so much so that as soon as I finished 3, I went right on to Amazon and I ordered 4.
There you go. Nice. Well, let's just start with Volume 2. So you hated Volume 2.
Yeah.
Didn't dislike, hated. So
hated.
What did you not like about Volume 2?
It was just, I mean, I got the plot and I understood where they were going with it and everything, but I hated that the piggy died. That really bothered me. I mean, he was all throughout the first book and he was so cute throughout the whole first book, and then bleh. And the way they did it, it was so disgusting.
You guys also have to remember, we're a little bit of pansy cakes. So literally the repeated death throughout the entire thing was like, oh God, really? Like I just want to take a second and be like, what is the mini story at the beginning of the volume with Jack and the Grim Reaper?
Oh, that's at the beginning of 3, love.
Oh, is that
That's at the beginning of 3.
Oops, never mind.
Yeah.
Wrong issue.
But that's okay.
Mom didn't do her homework properly. No, but
Wrong issue.
I mean, I enjoyed that Snow White was tough enough to take Shere Khan down, but for the most part, she was just not nearly as spunky as she was in the first book. She was just kind of a mamby-pamby whiner in the second book, and I didn't appreciate that at all. I hate the fact that at the end, her sister is still being a big jerk, a huge jerk. Her sister is such a jerk.
I would agree with that. Rose is kind of whiny.
I mean, instead of being like, yay, you're alive, she's pissed because she was so loved that she lived. That really bugged me. And you didn't really get to see much of our wolf guy in 2, so that was kind of...
There wasn't much.
All he got was like the honorable mentions at the beginning.
Yeah, he's my favorite character. So the fact that he was only gracing a couple pages, I was like, meh. But all in all, I didn't really think that the story was that great. I didn't care that they were all going to rebel.
I mean, I can see where they needed it to set it up for leading into book 3, but the whole animal rebellion as a whole was kind of pointless.
And Goldilocks is such a jerk.
So before we get into book 3, I want to talk about, then we'll let John and the experts chime in. So I'm going to give my initial thoughts. I enjoyed book 2 more than book 1. I will say that I found the whole revolution plot to be about this much smarter. That much smarter than Jack and Rose's plan in book 1. Their whole plan was really not well thought out. They were very their whole revolution was really kind of dumb. I did not actually mind Snow's portrayal that much because I felt like it was taking her. This is someone who was clearly out of her comfort zone. She wasn't expecting she despite her toughness or whatever, she seems to be someone who has in the past tried to think the best of her fellow Fables. And that goes back to her trying to bring Bigby in and everything else. She seems to try to see the better side of everyone. So I didn't mind that she was completely taken off guard and was kind of a little bit stunned by what happens, but then eventually figures it out. I was okay with that. But yeah, Rose is just gosh. like I'm mad because you're more popular than me, and I've been mad at you for hundreds of years. It's just like, and you died, and I'm still mad. You almost died, and I'm still mad, like, because they saved you. So yeah, so I get some of them. That's why I say I enjoyed it more than one, but it did not get me to where I'm like, oh, I need to keep reading this. It took 3 to get me to there. So
same.
All right, John and Unruly. So we've torn apart book 2. Tell us why we're wrong. Unruly, go ahead.
Gore just made a great point. I really loved. I mean, the title of the second volume was Animal Farm. I liked how the pigs were the enthusiastic communists, calling each other comrade. That was cool. And I love Rose. I think Rose is cool as nails. Now, and if you want to talk about being weird in the head, in the scene before they're reunited, Snow is whining about how her sister betrayed her. She'd lost all faith in her, when really Rose is the one that saved their asses. Yeah. And I can completely understand being overshadowed and holding a grudge about it. Plus, you got to throw the whole Prince Charming thing into the mix. That's got to really screw with your sisterly dynamics.
Well, yeah, but based on this, Rose did that pretty much just out of spite.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah, no, she did it.
But you'll find out later, and I'm not spoiling anything, Prince Charming can pretty much, he's a panty dropper.
Oh.
Well, yeah, whatever. Well, we've already figured that. I mean, that's pretty obvious already. Yeah.
No matter what your defenses are, he's just oozing, yeah, you want me.
What about you, John? What's your...
I totally agree with what Unruly's saying and what Gore is saying. I love the idea of the Russian Revolution, and I read Animal Farm in high school, and it's an amazing novel, and how they use Orwell's thoughts and ideas here is really, really clever. And if you've read that novel, I think that the relationship between the two is really kind of interesting. I get that Rose Red's annoying in some fashion. What I like about her, this is a book that points out that like her main flaws are men, like her relationship men and her sister. But you get her removed from all of that, and she is somebody who's incredibly effective. So she has no men to deal with in this, right? No romantic interest anywhere around her. So that whole side of her is pushed to the side. Sister is taken out of the equation pretty early on, and you get to see, in my opinion, a Rose Red who takes charge. She sees it's almost like and I'm going to go Lost here. She's almost like Sawyer. She's reading the terrain, and she's able to say, 10 steps from now, we're going to be dead if I don't do something right now. And if I let my sister in on this, it's not going to work. So I've got to basically give her the best advice I can give her, and then just backstab her and play the spy. And she is amazing at it. And in the end is able to make the whole thing work. And then later, as you sort of see her in her role at the farm, I think you see how effective she can be. She's genuinely a person who has an incredible amount of empathy. And for everyone but her sister. Like, for her sister, she has no empathy. Like, it doesn't matter. But for all those animals and what they've gone through up here, she has incredible understanding for what and nobody else right now in this trade, nobody cares that these animals are stuck here for lifetimes, like millennia. Yeah. And that other animals have been able to like get spells and transform and look like people and travel the world and do all these things. And they're in a prison. And the only character who seems to come from the outside and show any sympathy is Rose, and it's what endears the animals to her, and they end up accepting her as a mayor, if you will, of the animal farm. I really love her in this story, and I mentioned before we went live that rereading this, I realized there were 2 covers I needed to buy. And Unruly is absolutely right. The one from this trade that I need is the Shere Khan with the Sorry, Shere Khan with the pink collar, and she's just looking all badass. Like, this is my kitty. This is my kitty. That is phenomenal to me.
That is a great
artwork is fun, and the use of pink all the way through. The female characters get a time to shine in this trade, which I thought was really cool. They pulled all the testosterone gets kind of stripped away from the first trade. The first trade was a detective story. This one is a war story. There's a lot of war and espionage, and this team is in charge now. That team is in charge. There's a lot.
They kill a lot of characters in this story.
They kill a ton. And the twists and the moments for those deaths are thrilling, I think. I love Renard the fox. I think it's a great character when he comes in. I love the way they use the Jungle Book characters, because the Jungle Book comes through in a huge way. Kipling's whole universe with Bagheera and Shere Khan. I really love the introduction of all of that side of this story. And then the shocking twist was at the end of issue 8.
7 or no 8. It might be.
It's the 4th part of Animal Farm, but I don't know if it's what. But I mean, they literally pop a cap in Snow White's head.
Yeah,
right. I can't even imagine picking this up monthly and having that be the end of an issue and just be like, what?
Yeah,
you were dome off right there.
If you read that monthly, like, and
I'm sure wait a month to find out what's going to happen next.
Yeah, like, this is the end. Well, like, we get to the very next page, you see her, and then like you flip the page and you realize that, and it's like, so you don't have any of that. You don't even have to turn a page to see that in this. Whereas, if you're reading that monthly, that would be a much more dramatic moment. I think the moment would work better. I will agree that I felt like they were built, like, for me, they were building Rose like into a much more sympathetic character than she was in book 1. And that was one of the things I disliked the most about book 1 was I felt like Rose was just annoying, kind of like
Rose and Jack, both of them.
And they were building her into something more here, but I don't know. It just really annoyed me that, like, I get that she's mad at her sister and all this kind of stuff, but that, like, she's still mad because she lived, and that's just like, what the heck? Because she didn't want, like, that whole, like, the way she went about that argument was just so whiny. It was just like, and like, I don't know, that just really, like, it was like, okay, you were making progress.
It's absolutely petty, like 100%. But it's a crumb, or it's a rock it's a pebble in her shoe. It's not really like the real deal here. It's a piece of that problem. The idea that a sister has always been the one that everybody wanted to be around, the one that everybody liked, the one that meant something to everybody. She even makes the comment, if she takes that bullet to the dome, she's gone forever. But her sister takes the bullet to a dome, and it's like, no, everything's great. She's back to, she's fine. Like the world loves her and could give a rat's ass about her. And that's incredibly frustrating. Now, to put the onus on Snow is not fair.
No.
But it's still the way she feels. It's still genuine.
Well, and even to the point where, like, she was ticked off that Snow White got married and left her. And that's what, like, started her animosity was, how dare you go be happy without me? How dare you live your life and not include me in that? Which is why she purposely targeted Prince Charming. I mean, just the petty jealousy from then on is ridiculous. I mean, and it's great that she kind of comes into her own at the end and she takes over the animal farm and she's doing well there. But I mean, she's probably my very least favorite character. She's just a poop.
I mean, you're legitimately not supposed to like her a ton. And that's kind of the fun of it is,
well, I'm not sure other than Snow and Bigby, I'm not sure who in this world you're supposed to like.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's a jerk.
I would argue that that's their whole point, is that they don't want to make any character seem all good. Like you want the fairy tales. If that's what you're looking for, read the fairy tales. Right. That's their whole point, is like these characters are not that. They've all got flaws. Some really, really big and some small, but they're all going to have it. You can't. Their point was to get away from the white hat, black hat kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, no, and I agree. And it does work. Like I said, it works for me much better in this volume, in volume 2, than it does in volume 1. I think volume 1, and I will say, you guys were talking about, like, because to me, I think the revolution plan is really dumb, and I get the references to Animal Farm and everything else, and I think that part is well done. But
dumb in what way? What do you mean dumb?
So dumb in the fact that they're trying to start a revolution, and they don't include, like, all Snow has to do is wake up the actual heavy hitters at the farm, and she wins. And they didn't, like, think to and try to include, like, oh, we're going to go take on all the humans. We're going to go take on the adversary. We have 3 giants and a dragon. Let's just leave them asleep.
Well, they definitely explain that in the book, and maybe it just didn't come across that, like, that was a crazy, like, roll of the dice by Snow that could just as easily have backfired on her with those guys just killing her. Like they didn't want to wake those guys up because literally, why wake a sleeping giant? It's like a horribly dangerous idea.
Yeah, but if they're actually going to accomplish anything, they need more than the little, like.
Well, that's the thing. Their goal is not simply just to charge into the other world. Their goal is to take over New York and Fabletown, control it all, and then expand out. Like they had a whole. I mean, I'm not saying that they were geniuses or anything like that.
I don't know.
But I don't think that that their goal was just like a bunch of pigs and barnyard animals to run wild with little gun hats.
That sure seemed like their goal.
No, if you look at that cavern full of weapons, there's a heck of a lot of firepower in there.
Well, I think there's a heck of a lot of firepower, but if you look at this panel where she shuts them down, and you look at how few of them there actually are that are part of the revolution, like
they're not all there in that picture. It's not like they're all there.
There were supposed to be. That's what they set up the whole time, was everyone had to be at the town center.
I mean, in that frame, I'm saying. Yeah, they can't fit them all in that frame.
There was definitely delusions of grandeur going on amongst the populace. But listen, what you've got to understand is Fables, when they became popular in Europe, the church controlled everything. Part of their impetus was the pagan, the remnants of pagan belief in European villages. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the myths, the Greek and Roman myths, if you've ever read them, they're people writ large with all of our virtues and faults just amplified 1,000-fold. And because they, in some fashion, as evidenced by Snow White surviving a bullet to the dome, our belief in them is part of their soul, their mojo, what keeps them going. So right. Of course, they're bound to their archetypes. You know what I'm saying? And that's why Rose is taking Petty to a whole new level and blah, blah, blah. But they're also free agents, and their own free actors. I think he comes across with a great blend of those two things in these characters and the world. And I'm like John, I like seeing the other fables from other parts of the world, that we eventually get to see them all drawn into this.
Forgot to switch back. I'm sitting here nodding and not paying attention to the screen. So let's talk a little bit about our villain. And to me, there's really like the pigs are like supposedly the leaders of this revolution, but they are not the villain of this book. Like, the villain is Goldilocks. So I want to get everybody's thoughts on Goldilocks. But she, in a lot of ways, is driving everything they're doing without actually being technically in charge. Like, she's manipulating the animals to do what she wants, like, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Gore Vidal compared her to Lenin in the Russian Revolution. Really great comparison.
Hey, Genny. Hey, Old Wolf. Thanks for joining. So, who wants to start on Goldilocks? I'm curious. Who wants to take the lead there talking about her? Sharon, you want to give your
He's
thoughts?
messed up, dude. You know, I mean, how like they comment in the beginning about how the only reason that she's with the son is because of how well endowed he is. You know, which they kind of touch on later again in 3. You know, so you could tell that she's kind of got some interesting appetites there. And she's just mean, you know. She's bloodthirsty, and I don't know that she necessarily believes in the cause as much as she just wants to hurt people.
Yeah. She just wants to, she's power hungry, and she's willing to take out anyone that even slightly might be in her way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, and one of the things you talk about is like, the only reason, like, she instantly wants to shoot Snow. Like, she doesn't want, like, no, there's no trial with Goldilocks. She wants to just murder everyone that she thinks is an obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Rose saves Snow a couple of times from that, like before it eventually doesn't matter. She tries to do it anyway. But
the definitive part where Rose steps in and saves Snow, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe she really does love her sister. But then there's that scene at the end where she's just a poop again. But there was that definitive moment when she definitely stepped in front of Snow to save her life there. So that's a very complicated twist, you know.
Well, I will go back to the Snow and Rose thing again. I think Rose actually does love her sister. She just can't stand her sister. Like, and I think it's really like, so she is very conflicted, and I get that, but it doesn't make her any, like, it still was like, you're so petty, it's so annoying. Like, but hey Bear Island, hey Hydra, what's going on? So yeah, but let's get back to Goldilocks. What about you, John and Unruly? What are you guys' thoughts on our villain of this particular tale?
Well, Goldilocks, if you think about the original Fable with her in it, she was a whiny little bitch. You know, this bed is too hard. Oh, this porch is too cold. So that's what she grew up to be.
And whose bed did she want to end up in?
The just right one. Because it was just because it was just right.
And God bless
I was
her.
actually wondering.
There.
I was wondering about Rena reading this and having Mom be like, maybe this was a bad call. I don't know.
Well, it wasn't as bad as the third one. Some of the stuff on the third one.
Yeah.
I saw her eyebrows.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt Unruly. He was still going. Sorry.
No. I'm good. I just, let me go back to what I was saying a couple minutes ago. Have y'all ever read the original fairy tales? They're very bloody, very gory.
Oh, they're not really
sanitized
fairy tales
for our consumption. And again, he's doing a nice job of blending those two things. Willingham doesn't he draw an issue in this at some point down the line?
I'm not sure.
I think he does the pencils for one of those little short 1 page or 2 page. Because the first time I ever saw him,
of 3,
the first time I ever saw Willingham, he drew an issue of Justice League, the 80s reboot post-crisis, and he's an okay penciler, but he is a great freaking writer. I'll go down any path this man cares to, you know. I wonder if he made mad money off of this, because I ain't heard too much from him since.
Huh.
I don't know. I was gonna say, did he pencil one of the issues in the
no. For me, like, what I love about Goldilocks is she's just one of the, I mean, there's many archetypes for villains, but this is the clear, unapologetic, like, villain. The one that's just going to do the dirty work, going to get in there and whatever needs to get done. She's leading the troops when they're in the woods hunting for Renard. She's telling the birds to kill other birds. She's really, like, in there. And then, of course,
what she does to Colin.
Yeah.
Like, she's responsible for they talk about how graphic that is. Like, they talked a little bit about how graphic.
I mean, there's several references for that, but I was taking some of the, like, Lord of the Flies references for that moment, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful, like, she's clearly well-read. She's an educated kind of person, and yet she is using it for manipulation, for power, like JP said. I absolutely, like, think she's phenomenal. in that you need a character you hate so much, right?
You hate her.
And again, it's that female empowerment issue. This trade is like the ladies are in charge in this trade on all sides. Like they're pushing for the power, and the guys are just like, yeah, I guess we'll go along with this crazy plan. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, and even the guys that show up to the rescue party that shows up like after Snow's already like taking care of it, and the grand rescue party is like, oh, you didn't actually need us.
Right? Yeah. They're all useless, right? They're all just dead weight at that point. So I love Goldilocks, and I like that they give her so many like power moments, like the pulling the trigger on Snow White. You're instantly like, okay, I take her seriously now, and that's so useful in the next trade when we're like worried about everything. Like she can pull the trigger and will pull the trigger at any moment.
So are we ready to move on to book 3, or you guys want to say anything else about book 2 first?
My favorite 2 moments in book 2 is when Snow kills Shere Khan.
That was a good moment. Yeah.
And when the pig is getting beheaded in that full page spread.
Oh, no.
And he's like, could you just do it right this time, you loser? I admire style in the face of death is awesome.
Yeah, so here's the killing of Shere Khan. She finds
have mercy on me.
Yeah.
She finds one of the helmet guns, and she's beating him off the cliff, and then he climbs up again, and this time she shoots him once, and he's like, wait, what? He has that like Lion King on the edge of the cliff moment, and then she just unloads. She's just like pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. After who gives no one mercy was like asking for mercy. Yeah.
Right.
But then she just like breaks down. I'm like, why did she break down?
That's part of her sympathy because of her love for
she doesn't she hasn't probably ever killed anything like before that.
Maybe that's a good point. Yeah.
So
because she sits there for a good long
time. But I might incriminate myself.
Yeah, well, that's not in her nature to be a killer. Let's put it that way. Whether or not she's actually had to kill something before or not.
And then this was the other one that Unruly was talking about, the beheading of the guilt. Yeah. Hey, these are the villainous pigs. This isn't Colin. These are the.
I don't care. It's just like I get it, and I like the humor in that panel.
Right.
But it's like, dude, I don't need to look at that. Come on now.
Well, and this is kind of that comic that's like, we're still gonna make you look at it.
Make you look at it a lot. Yes.
I will say one of the more fun scenes and interactions I did have I enjoyed out of this whole thing just for the thing was the whole moment where she's trying to free Wayland and she never thinks about the key.
Yeah, and he's like,
and you can see him when Bernard comes in and it's like, why did you try the key? And she's like, well, he can't free himself, right? And then he's like sweating because he can't break the charm to tell her that's what she needs to do. That whole interaction was really good, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
All right. Well, let's
can I preface the third book with the concept? I know that real quickly Rena had said something about the random story at the beginning, and there's another random story kind of at the end, but what the series this is when it's really kind of finding its footing, both artistically and story wise. They're really finding kind of what they want to do, and you'll find that scattered through the run they have a lot of these little breaks between stories where they give you a glimpse of somebody back in the old world, or maybe when they first arrived in our world, and these little breakaway moments that maybe flesh out a character a little bit or just are completely random and hilarious. They even released I don't think it was ever released in individual issues, but there was a trade called 1001 Nights of Snowfall, which was, Scheherazad's telling of the 1001 stories so that his bride wouldn't have to marry him. I don't know if you've heard that fable, but the idea was he had all these brides and he took a new bride and she didn't want to have to marry him. So on the wedding night, she said, well, let me tell you a story. And she told a story that lasted all night and he loved it. And he was like, okay, don't worry, we'll sleep together tomorrow night. And the next night she told another story to keep him away. And it was she ended up going 1,000 nights and told him so many stories that he never ended up, bedding her. It was basically the Arabian Nights, right? All the stories of Arabian Nights is what she was doing. Gotcha. Well, they reframe all of that and they make the woman that's going to be married Snow, and she doesn't want to, she's just arrived in our world and she doesn't want to have to be married to some Arabian prince. So she just starts telling him fables, the fairy tales of her world. And so there's little things like that where they're just reframing fairy tales in our world in fun kind of ways. And usually the art style is dramatically different. They bring in artists for things, and think of it like Image Comics, how they sometimes will take 6 months off, but instead of doing that, they would just bring in another artist to do a couple of issues and then be back to the regular scheduled programming, a few months down the line.
And I do think that is a super effective way to build this world, because there's so many, like, one of the things one of my big complaints in the first one was I felt like that, like, they didn't do a good enough job of setting up the world as a whole. Like, it was very focused on this little detective story for 6 issues. And I felt like everyone else kind of got the short shift in terms of like world building. So I think those are really fun. The one at the beginning and the one at the end, the one with Jack at the beginning and the one at the end with the small town. I think those are really effective for building the Fables world, like an little interludes between the main storyline. They're not necessarily they're not my favorite issues of the thing, but I do think they're like fun inserts that they're doing.
Well, and it rounds the character out. I mean, because, you kind of already knew that Jack was kind of a schmutz before, but this drives his schmutziness home. Especially, when he's like, well, hey, why don't you sleep with me before you die? And, he's like, you're the prettiest girl I would be able to sleep with. And you're just like, Jack, it just rounds out his douchiness, in my opinion.
Jack is something else.
Jack is a dude, and it's amazing how often everything goes right for him, and then it always crumbles.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, yeah, because then she ends up dumping him in the end. And
he ultimately he ends up buying her an extra year of life, and she still dumps him. So.
You gotta wonder at that point what her reaction is when she's like, "Oh, Def's here for me now. Whoops, maybe I should have stayed with that guy."
Well, yeah, but then he loses the bag. So I mean, but that's another story.
He'd already lost the bag too.
Nowhere. You're like, why? After all of that, could you imagine just all of her farm animals are dead? She went in through and hacked every single one of them.
Yeah.
Beth comes back in and he's like, "Oh, you guys really? I got my vacation and now I have like a pile up to do." Your entire livestock, like you. Well.
Yeah, I think after maybe like a couple animals, you go back to Jack. Not after all of them. That was rather.
Yeah.
She wasn't exactly the smartest knife in the drawer. She was not.
Then the rest of this trade is kind of like 2 main stories. You get the Sleeping Beauty story, which is kind of short, and then you get the main Storybook Love storyline as well. Yeah. So there's lots of this trade is 8. This is the first one that's not just 5 issues. This one's 8 issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. This is a much thicker book than volume 2.
It's even thicker.
So so do we want to spend any time on the Sleeping Beauty story, or do we just want to go to the other one?
I feel kind of bad for her because, again, Prince Charming is manipulating her. And even though she knows that he's a creep and knows that he's a swindler, he still manages to ooze his way into her house and starts blowing her money and starts taking the house over. And she's just like, oh, okay. You kind of just want to slap her a little bit.
A little bit. I did enjoy this storyline, like the short story with the reporter that thinks he's gonna expose him, but he has it all actually wrong. Like he actually has it all wrong.
Yeah,
and then they use it against him, which is so great. Like they use it
trick him. Yeah,
I was genuinely shocked that he died after all that setup, and then he gets it anyway. That completely blew my mind.
It did not by the end of it, I was kind of expecting that, because to me, and that goes back to Bluebeard a little bit, of like, as you see through the thing, he thinks he's Mr. Big Man, and he's all this bluster, and when Bigby like basically humiliates him, even though it's just the two of them in the room at that moment,
cry.
Yeah, make him cry, and like, because he calls his bluff. So Bluebeard was looking for a way to like make himself feel powerful again. So he just like, even though the guy was taken care of, they didn't need to do anything with that guy anymore. He went and killed him because it made him feel strong again after basically being demasculated by Bigby. And I feel like that whole storyline was very good for me, at least. I really enjoyed it because it gave us a little more into Bluebeard. It gave us a little more into Jack and Little Boy Blue and Flycatcher, and like it starts actually kind of setting those other characters up a little bit, and Prince Charming even a little bit, and it like, so yeah, I really enjoyed that. In some ways, that actually started increasing my enjoyment more than the first two volumes. Like after I got through the first two volumes, that storyline was probably my favorite of the first three before we got to Storybook Love. Like, just even though it was super short, I just enjoyed the interactions in that one more than I had in some of the interactions in some of the others, in terms of just between the characters.
I have to say that my favorite part out of the whole Sleeping Beauty arc was that it was Flycatcher who woke her up.
Yeah.
They're all like, that's not going to work. What are you doing? And he's like, why are you doubting me? And then she just like, pop, and he's like, oh, gotta go. And he just leaves straight.
Tastes like
yeah, she's like,
yes.
Or the
things in this book that kind of really surprised me. I didn't see coming. Like when the little guy and the mouse were spying on Goldilocks, I totally thought that they were going to get away. I was completely surprised at that scene. I was completely surprised when the reporter bit it. I was completely surprised when she ends up pregnant. I totally thought that
spoilers.
There's nothing going on there. I mean, this particular one surprised me a lot. I didn't see these things coming. I just got wrapped up in the story, and then I was like, oh, no way. So I enjoyed the story for that purpose.
Actually, my favorite part of the Sleeping Beauty, the Briar Rose storyline was when he asked her about how she woke up the other time, like the dog. The dog named Prince. The dog loved her, and he was named Prince. I love that. If you tell anyone, I'll hate you forever.
I love the way they used her. I mean, I think this comic is at its best when it starts to veer into I don't want to like label it so simply, but like into an X-Men world for me, where it's these people who have powers they don't quite understand, can't quite control, learning how to work together as a team, and they're all very odd. And they're all kind of like worldly rejects. And that's the stuff I've always liked about X-Men. And it's the stuff I kind of like about this world. And Briar Rose, like in most ways, is like the ideal woman, right? She's like, she's wealthy. She's beautiful. She's super nice. She's very smart. But she has this like power she can't in any way control, right? She just pokes her finger at the salon or whatever, the mall, and the world just ends around her. The vines start appearing all over the place, and it's like, I like that the way they kind of play on those things, and this is if the first trade was a noir detective, the second one was a war. This is a thriller. There's a lot of like thriller elements where it's like violence and people being chased and hunted, and and a lot of blood and gore, and like this one's definitely almost a horror in some ways. Like there are qualities, and so I do love the way the books shift as they go along. And of course, who else but Bill Willingham would do like a love story as a horror?
So yeah, I think we're to the. I'm pretty sure what Sharon and Rena's favorite part of this that we've read so far, which is the Storybook Love, which is what, 4 issues maybe.
Yeah. It's these 3, and then the one that I'm missing here, which would be the cover that I like the most.
It's got to be.
It's the extra. It's another pink one.
I know. I found it earlier. I was going to show it again if I find it. Like my guess.
It's Goldilocks in her underwear with a giant battle axe.
Oh,
come on! That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right? I love this cover. It's hilarious. It's so like, okay, she's of course she's Goldilocks, so she's like a little kid, but she's not. She's incredibly violent, incredibly dangerous. They've even got her on a motorcycle on this cover, which I think is hilarious. With the goggles and the rifle and everything. There's just some great allusions to her character being like childlike, but also just like incredibly graphically violent.
Well, she's incredibly graphic in like every possible way.
Right.
I mean, like Goldilocks does not pull any punches on any way, shape, or form, and like.
Well, and how Bluebeard is lecturing her because she keeps hitting on his manservant, and he's just like, you need to leave him alone, and she's like, yeah, well, you're just not good enough for me, so
you don't like, you're just a normal person, you don't I have other. She likes other things.
Exactly. Yes. So she's definitely an interesting character.
See, I think even if Bigby hadn't have emasculated Bluebeard, he would have killed that dude anyway, because he knows best.
Oh yeah, Bluebeard.
That's true.
A big part of what drives him. And talking about Goldilocks, yeah, she is so childlike. Even with the freaking axe in her skull, she's like convinced, like the immortality myth that obviously they'd never get over. She's just convinced that she's going to survive everything, and she does.
Yeah.
And I love them setting up Flycatcher and Boy Blue and Briar Rose. That little power that she can't control comes in handy down the road. And Boy Blue and Flycatcher are pretty important characters. And I love how there's this little background comedy in these first few arcs.
Yeah. They're mostly just kind of background comedy in these first few arcs, but you can tell there's more there.
So she lives through all that? Because I got the impression she
was totally gonna. I don't know that she does, but I assumed she would.
I mean, between the
you don't read the image of her body drifting down the river and not bring her back. It's
too good to be true because
you don't come back after that, guys. John.
No, got her head blown away, and she was fine. Goldilocks is a well-known, Goldilocks is totally going to survive that.
That's a valid point, because if Snow White came back from being shot in the head.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's if fables can live based on their favoritism, Goldilocks is a fairly well-known fable.
Yeah.
It's like, so when Bigby's like, you think she's dead? And Snow's like, oh, absolutely. What would make you think that?
I totally thought she was dead. Yeah.
Well, yeah. He's like, I hope so. She's popular. They won't let her die easy. And it's like, yeah, she's not dead. She's totally coming back at some point.
So this story, like what I really love about it is it's Bigby's turn to shine. Like he gets a huge part here and explains a ton of his own life and his perspective on things. And he's been this kind of, he's got a pretty big part in the original trade, but I feel like this is when he learned about him, and it's not so much about Rose or Snow or these other characters. It's definitely his perspective, and that's when, like I said, this trade is the one that like blew my mind, and I was like, okay, I'm way in on this, and listen, like, so yeah, for the audience, I guess, like he and Snow get poisoned, magicked, whatever.
Magic. Yeah, they get magic.
That was like instantaneous. Like, oh come on, there was no build up there.
Yeah, no, they just get jujued. Yep.
They wake up in the wilderness, and there's two kind of stories going on. One has Goldilocks hunting them in the wilderness, and the other story has Bluebeard trying to cover it all up back in the city and having a few characters come wise to his plan.
Yeah. Well, you actually see, like, the interesting thing is Prince Charming was up to something, and he stumbled across Bluebeard's plan because he already had them investigating anyway. He was suspecting something. So I'd be curious, like, one of the things I would, like, Charming is, like, I was very disappointed with how they portrayed him in the first one because I felt like he was very one note. And I feel like this one they do a much better job of really, like, fleshing out that, you know, more to him than there was with the one note at the beginning. And they do a much better job of setting him up here. He's still not likable in any way, shape, or form. Like,
I don't know. It's all about foils, right? Literal foils, or in this case, character foils. Because you put him next to Bluebeard long enough, and you start being like, well, he's not that bad. Right?
Yeah, you know, his whole motivation for killing Bluebeard is like, well, I'll do something nice for Snow and save Big.
But we want him to kill Bluebeard so bad. We're like, yeah, he's a good guy. It's kind of like putting Goldilocks and Rose Red together. You're kind of like, man, Rose isn't so bad. Like Goldilocks.
He did it for himself.
He did it for the money.
I know he totally did it for himself. But
yeah,
he says, like, there's a line there where he's like, what does he say? My good impulses only go so far. So, you know, it's like. So yeah,
I love him in this trade. That whole fencing sequence is just amazing, and the build up between, like, the toy sword. Oh, you only can go for, like, points versus the real swords, and I'll stab you any way I like. Like, I love that the evolution of that battle sort of between the two of them in this whole story.
Yeah, the fact that, you know, in some ways, like. Yeah, Bluebeard sort of humiliates them when they're, like, not really fighting, when they're doing their little training thing. And how much of that is set up and how much of that is, like, real. Like, part of me, I think the Charming is, like, sort of just playing into it and letting him kind of win to a certain degree because he knows at some point he may need to actually fight him. And he's like, this doesn't matter. When it matters, then I'll beat him. It's kind of.
I can tell by the look on his face right after that first initial confrontation when Charming walks away. You can tell by his face that it was just BS the whole time. You know, because he just had that fierce, determined look. Like, yeah, you think you beat me, but you didn't really. And I don't know if you guys can see the panel, just that look on his face right there, where he's like. Yeah.
I mean, he looks kind of angry, but yeah, it's so. But yeah, he's definitely
I'm totally on Team Charming. He's a slave to his nature. The fact that he has any kind of maturity level at all is just, you can chalk that up to his longevity. You know, I mean, like,
and here's, I'm going to show that the line there. Noble impulses only go so far. It's like, because he's going to take, he's like, oh, I'm taking all your, you can't bribe me because I'm going to take all your money. Like,
or he keeps saying, he keeps saying, like, don't you understand? I told you already, I'm going to kill you. Like, there's no, I told you at the beginning of this whole thing, I'm going to kill you. Like, why do you keep thinking that's not what's going to happen?
And I love how he just waltzes through the lobby with the body on his shoulder. I'm going to go dispose of his body. Be a good chap and help me out.
Yeah, I'm going to go just throw it down the well. And it's just like, and you know,
random
neighbor totally like, and he plays everyone else like so like. It's clear that his like ability to play other people isn't just women, like because he plays King Cole and everybody else with Snow and Bigby not there, like to set himself in a position to ultimately take advantage of this, which I have no doubt that he's going to get what he wants out of this ultimately, like not even having not read any further, which is all of the money. Like, but he plays King Cole like a fiddle. I mean, just like, and he's totally like, we need to do this before Snow and Bigby get back. They'll just get in the way.
Well, because they're the only two people he can't legitimately play anymore. Like they are
Yeah.
both completely immune to 90% of his BS.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think they're not. Yeah, his BS is not going to work on either of those two at this point. So let's get to Bigby's story. I mean, Bigby, like, Bluebeard casts a spell on them, and they wake up like 2 days later in the middle of the woods. They're like, how the heck did we get here? And basically, they're on the run, and Goldilocks tries to kill them, fails initially, and then they're on the run. And we get basically Snow forces him to tell him why he's interested. And we get this whole, as John talked about, background on Bigby. So what did you guys think of that whole sequence, the way they laid out them kind of running from Goldilocks, all of it? I'm just curious. Rena.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rena.
Yeah, no, do it.
Yeah. I mean, other than Bigby being our favorite character from the get-go, it was really interesting because, I mean, and it's really the way he describes it, because he's
almost like he's annoyed by it,
right?
Yes.
And he's like, okay, I don't want, like, and he keeps saying to her, like, that's not what I mean, because she keeps saying like, oh, so it's like blah blah, and he's like, no, it's, and because like he describes to her and he sets it up as the example of he has to constantly smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise his senses by living in New York City would drive him nuts, but he can't get her scent out of his head. And, and just the whole scene where she's like, because he's like, well, us wolves, when we meet our first one, we can't get their scent out of our heads. We're intrigued. So she's like, so I was your first human interest that you may or may not have hopped onto the train for. And he's like, well, kind of, but I just wasn't interested in you until I was a human for a few centuries,
Yeah.
He's like, you were just too intriguing for me to kill. And she's like, that's reassuring.
So I will say, I do have a question for Rena and Sharon. Did you guys read the Wolf in the Fold, like the written one at the back of volume 1?
I know basically what happens.
And he is a really sad story. Like, it's tragic to know why he evolved into the monster that he became, when really he's not a monster. He just wanted
he's a wolf.
Dad, yeah. I mean,
right. Well, it starts out as him wanting to kill his dad, and then it becomes
his mom.
But then it turns into the vendetta against humanity after Little Red Riding Hood. And it's not until the big war starts that he's like, okay, I can't keep fighting these other fables. We're going to have to band together or we're all going to die.
So, I mean, it's fascinating that he starts out not being this powerful character, turns himself into a dark character, and then brings himself back around into being a good guy. He really comes kind of full circle, which is enjoyable for me to see a character do. So, yeah. Which is
I really enjoyed that whole sequence of him, like, because even he like, you can tell, like you guys talked about, like, he doesn't, part of him doesn't really want to be interested in Snow. Like, he doesn't, like, but he can't, at this point he can't help himself, and he doesn't truly completely understand why. Like, it's just like, but so yeah, he's sort of very frustrated by it, but he just knows that's like his nature, and that he can't get her out of his head. He can't move past it until he tries. Like, and it's just really, the whole sequence is, I think it's just really well done. And her reactions to it and the way he tells the story, I just think that was just really well done for me. Now I think
He was picking at him, and he's like, "All right, you want to open this can of worms? Here goes." And at the end, he's like, "All right, that's enough."
Yeah, she was definitely in the TMI zone by the end of it. She's like, "No, I don't want to hear all this." I will say though, my big disappointment in this whole sequence is his.
I know exactly what it is.
His big plan to catch Goldilocks off guard. I control. He like blows down the thing so he can lead her into a trap. And he's like, I control the winds. And then he just like hops out, and lets her shoot him. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I was very disappointed by the big bad wolf in that sequence. And that wasn't even like a battle. He just
I will. So yeah, let's go like into some of the nitty gritty here. I mean, so we get to see his power and how it works. In the original trade, we saw that he could turn into like a wolf man. Mm. This shows that he can become an actual wolf, which by the way, like I want to do that right on the wolf.
Yeah, that first sequence when she's like, wow. And yeah, when she's gets to go. He's like, hold on,
you can't possibly hurt me.
All I could think of was Twilight. I was like, the scene with Jake, I don't know. You guys probably haven't seen Twilight, but that's immediately what I thought.
Oh, hang on. Let me make John big.
Laying. He's like giant. He's a giant wolf.
Yeah.
Well, and that was part of his wolf's tail. Why he got so big. Yeah.
And then, of course, I love the bit when he says, it's time for a little of the huff and puff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time for a little bit of, and he looks more like the werewolf there, and he's like, "It's time for a little bit of the old," and it which leads to like some of my favorite panels in this, which are these circular panels.
Oh yeah,
those are really
really cool. And then of course the spread page of her just going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
and just getting blown away. I love all of that. Now, I will argue, I think that his plan was to distract her and let Snow do the job. And that she had to know that she was walking into a trap. She had to know she was close to him. So he's just this big wolf. She's gonna get a shot off, but he can definitely distract her. And so I viewed it as part of his plan, personally.
Me too.
That he was like, she's not going to be expecting Rose. She's going to be looking out for me. Snow. Snow can just literally drop the hammer.
I don't know.
This lady.
I don't know. I felt like that was like a pretty poor plan because I feel like it maybe not because she's so focused on him that it was easy for Snow. But Snow is not like very stealthy as she's sneaking up on her. At least the way they draw it, it doesn't appear like she's really doing. She like sneaks up on her because Goldilocks is completely distracted, but it's not like.
Well, he flat out says to her, "You should have used silver," so he knew that it wasn't going to kill him. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm kind of a mind that that was the plan because he's taunting her in the middle of her shooting him over and over. He's
Here's
like,
an appetizer.
Yeah. Did you silver? So and that's Snow nails her with the axe. Wah! So that was a pretty intense scene. Just that scene where she's like, slap right in the back of the head with the axe.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. This whole sequence of Goldilocks after Snow hits her with the axe. So you got some really gruesome panels with her walking around with an axe in her head. And then like they fight a little more. She hits her with her cane. And breaks her neck, and she's still like, I won't go down. and
then falls down the cliff.
He falls down the cliff. Like this whole panel where she's just tumbling down the cliff and it lands in the road, and she's still like, still not dead. And then the truck. I mean,
so freaking
it's so violent and but I think part of it was really to like, if it didn't drive home the part with Snow getting shot in the head and surviving, is that to me it was clear the whole time, like when she falls in the river after she gets hit by the truck, that she's going to come back. And it's just like, because of the belief we have in them, and John talked about this a little bit earlier, that like they are basically immortal. Like it doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. And I'll be interesting to see like how she comes back. If she's not like, if she comes back and she looks like Goldilocks, or if she comes back and she's a little bit like crippled, deformed because how things healed as she was like coming back to life. I'm curious. I have no doubt.
I mean, they can die. If he died simply by Prince Charming stabbing him through the heart, you know, I mean.
But I think it was supposed to be in the implication that nobody liked Bluebeard because he was like this murderer. And he's not really a fable too many people know
that
about.
kind of goes back to the sister thing. Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense.
It goes back to the same thing with Rose, where Rose is like, I would be dead, like, and I would not come back because people don't remember me, like, don't remember my story. And so, yeah, some of them are basically unkillable and some of them are not. And I could see how that, and I'd be curious to see if they play that up a little more, like they played it up a little bit between Snow and Rose. I'd be curious to see if that comes up more going forward, like the inequity between the Fables in terms of literally some of these characters are immortal, like, and some of them, like, I had no clue who Rose Red was. I had to look up that story to like, I had never heard of Rose Red before this. I'm like, what fable is that from? So had you, Rena, or do you have to look it up too?
I didn't know who Rose Red was. I'm like, I looked him up. I'm like, wait a minute, Snow White has a sister?
Yeah, but see, I had read the old fables, so that's how I know who she was.
Well, I didn't know who Bluebeard was. So when reading the first volume, I'm like, who the heck is this? I have no idea who this is. And Mom had to explain it to me. I'm like, oh, now I understand. Now I know why I don't know about him.
Yeah.
I think it's just hilarious though that JP and I are sitting here conjecturing and Unruly and John are just quietly stroking their beards.
Well,
hashtag the gloat is real. It's funny.
So we're a little over an hour. I'm curious for John and Unruly. You guys have obviously read the whole thing. Where do these, like, for you guys in terms of just parts of this story, where do these volumes rank for you guys? I'm curious where you would put them as part of. Obviously, I know they were kind of what hooked you originally. You talked about these two storylines, these two volumes is kind of what hooked you both into it a little bit. But where would you put them overall in terms of your favorite portions of this bigger story?
I don't know that I could rank parts of it, you know, because it's all one long tale to me. And didn't Alec, I think Alec Whitewell said that he thought it went on a little too long. See, I'm past the point where I think he thinks it should have ended, and I'm loving it again. You know, for the life of me, that he could have still been publishing this and it could never end, and I would love it. But these, I guess if I had to rank them, they'd be middle tier because they're still setting stuff up. It's the big arc, and I hope I'm not giving anything away. Eventually, they do confront the adversary.
Well, yeah, they got to. They've set that up. I mean, that's not really giving it. If they never confronted the adversary, I'm like, why did you even bring it up? Like
that, I just finished that, and now I'm in the next phase. And to me, the next phase is just as good as the phase with the adversary.
Okay.
So I love the whole damn thing, and I wish it had never ended.
There you go. What about you, John?
Yeah, Storybook Love in particular is always near the very top for me. I love the finally getting this nugget of who Bigby is. I like the Briar Rose storyline as much as I like the other. I think they go together really well. Yeah. I even love the twisted end caps at either end for this trade. I love this trade a bunch. But admittedly, like Unruly is saying, they all tie together in big ways. And there are some, like, I think Unruly and I have said several times that we have a lot of love for Boy Blue or Flycatcher, who have these huge epic story arcs to come. I was showing off this cover before we went live. This is a Boy Blue cover that I think is just beautiful. But this is part of his story, the Blue Horizon. And, you know, I think Flycatcher's story is called The Good Prince or something like this. It's just a beautiful storyline, that one. But there's, again, it's hard to just pull one out and be like, this is the best one. They all do interconnect. But if I had to, like Unruly saying, this one for me, Storybook Love is the one that I always put like in number one. It's just like right there for me.
How many are there, out of curiosity? How many times
There's
am I going to be
lot.
ordering these off of Amazon?
There's a lot. Yeah.
There's like 22, I think, in Fables. Jack of Fables has his own series that's 8 volumes.
And did you
and I don't know how many Fairest has.
Yeah. Fairest is the one a lot of people got into because it had Adam Hughes doing all those amazing covers that like are all over the place. They're just gorgeous. But Fables itself, the main story, is the one that I read. I didn't care for Jack of Fables all that much because obviously it's Jack, and I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, Jack. I don't think I would ever read the Jack of Fables.
It went on quite a while though. It was a pretty popular series. It just wasn't for me.
It's not necessary you can read Fables and you don't have to know about Jack, but it is complementary and it does start out at point X and then come back into Fables at point Y.
Wow. Okay. Got you.
Okay. So what about Ferris? How does it fit in?
I haven't read Ferris, and those trades are hard to track down. I've been looking for them.
Okay.
I've read a little bit. I just didn't. For me, everything I needed, I got in Fables, and I didn't need to go beyond that.
Okay. Interesting. Well, you guys got any final thoughts before we wrap this up? Let's start with the other new readers, Rena and Sharon. You guys got any final thoughts?
Go ahead,
just the one, and I think we mentioned it in passing, but didn't actually stop to acknowledge Snow White is pregnant.
Oh, we did not actually talk about that, did we? So.
That is true. Because she does bring it up, and she's like, "Do you think we?" And he's like, "Nah."
But then she points out to him that he should have known, and he's kind of like, "Well, I was just trying to keep us focused at the task at hand." So Big B knew, and she's like, and he didn't bother to tell her.
Well, and I think I understand why she's angry in that scene. And I'll be honest, like that scene in some ways, like brought this book down a little bit to me because I felt like it was a little bit of a manufactured way to split them back apart. like, cause it's like, oh, we're bringing them together now. No, we're not. And
because they had that whole moment at the airport where she's like, a night amongst the humans wouldn't kill me, and he's like, well, I'll be damned. And then you literally got next couple weeks, and she's like, I never want to speak to you again. It's like,
it's moving.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was a little bit frustrating because I felt like it was a little bit manufactured, like they manufactured it that way to just split them back apart. So I didn't particularly, but I did like. I totally understand his reasoning for not saying anything, which is at the time he needed her focused on getting out of there. And then he knew that if he told her, that would be a whole thing that he was going to have to deal with. Now, should he have probably told her when they got back? Yeah, when they were in safety, but maybe not. I get it. Neither of them were in their right minds when it happened. So I understand where he's coming from. I also understand where she's pissed that he didn't tell her. So it's kind of like
he should have told her. Yeah. I mean, for her to find out because she's pregnant, that's kind of harsh. Yeah.
I don't think that he has any memory of it. I think he just could tell when it was from, his heightened senses.
Right.
That's
exactly.
Yeah, no, he clearly doesn't have any memory of it, but but he knew it happened. And so,
mentioned, afterward, he's like, hey, I don't know if anything happened between you and me, but you are pregnant. I don't know if it's my kid or not, but you're pregnant.
His kid is
he didn't know
all right, he gets to call her a slut on top of everything else.
Yeah, I don't think that would have went over well, Reno. I'm just going on a limb. That might have been worse than what happened.
Well, and
cutting it down gently. How about that?
I will say he's genuinely surprised that she's pregnant. Like he genuinely seems like, really? Like I think his thought was, if this goes somewhere, maybe I'll let her know. But if this never goes anywhere, she doesn't need to know. And I don't neither. So I think that was his thinking. And then she says, nope, sorry, there's some proof that you're not telling me everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly where he was coming from. In the moment, he didn't tell her because they needed to get out of there. He wanted her focused on survival and not that. And then when they got back, I think it was, well, he didn't necessarily expect anything to come of it. And he was like, if he tells her then, that ruins any shot he probably has at her saying, take me out. And so he was probably like, well, let's see what happens before I ruin it. And then, well, yeah, then it was ruined anyway. Because he finds out a different way. So.
But what's funny is that all the rest of the Fables think that they've been together this whole time. I mean, on a number of occasions, the other Fables are gossiping about them and the fact that they are together. And of course, they haven't been the whole time. So it's kind of funny that, you know, they do end up together eventually. So, which I'm excited to read.
Yeah, we'll see. But no spoilers, Sharon.
Hey, I'm not Rena.
Yeah, Rena's already read like the end of the story. She knows what happens in the very last issue.
Oh, she already told me all kinds of dirt. I'm like, dang it, you did not. You told me the one thing that I'll tell you off the air. So.
Well, you already said, Rena, that the first thing you did when you opened Volume 4 was go to the last page.
Okay, I flipped through it and just the last page. Okay.
Oh no, she googled the whole story.
I know how it ends, but I'm still going through and read them all. Yeah,
you're not going to read them. Don't lie.
Yes, I read these
today.
Well, I don't know when we'll get back, but if you guys are up for it, I'm sure at some point we'll do volumes 4 and 5, maybe. So I don't have those yet, and I got a stack to catch up on before I get there, but. We will definitely, if you guys
I'm not buying those for you.
No, you don't have to. You definitely do not have to. You do not have to. I will probably
sing. So that'll be relief for everyone involved.
Yeah. So, but we'll touch base. I want to thank everybody for hanging out. Old Wolf's still been hanging out. Burke family dropped in here. He's getting close to 1,000. Definitely sub him up. Gore Vidal's been hanging out the whole time. Thank you guys. Magic Glass Show. I appreciate it. I want to thank my panel for hanging out. I want to say happy birthday again to John for hanging out on his birthday, talking Fables with us. I appreciate it. And yes, John, I did enjoy it much more this time. So
I gave you a present for my birthday.
Yeah. So,
I'm a hobbit.
Your present for me is that I liked it. And there you go. You were right. It was good. So, all right. Well, I think unless you guys want to give a pitch for anything before we get off here, and then we'll get out of here. So,
my piece.
Sharon and Rena, what do you got? Who's coming up on Isle of this weekend?
Tomorrow, I'm on Lamer Frame.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And I'm gonna kick your butt, Tony. If you're still in the chat, you can practice with that eye patch all you want. Yeah, so tomorrow we have to draw with crayons and an eye patch. So
I need to be on the show at some point.
Is this a Nick Fury special?
I don't know. 36, he comes up with some clever ideas. So we'll see how well I can do with that. That's going to be an embarrassment. And then coming up on Isle of, we have Night Tiger.
Right.
He's the one who's been doing the First Ladies of DC.
Ooh, nice.
Which, John, I think you're doing some voiceover work this time for, right?
Yup.
So you and I will be a part of that project. And yeah, I think that's and I just finished with Metarog today, my international series. So hopefully we will go live with that this week. It's going to be super fun. It's going to be Simple Simon and the Gray Man and Metarog. And we're going to be talking about international lingo. So that'll be fun.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Unruly, you don't make many videos, but you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be on taking Miracle's place on Graders Notes Thursday. It will be this comic that Roger picked out, which has got some incredible art in it. The artists in here are incredible. But you can watch that Thursday if you're so inclined.
Awesome. And John, I know you're never on anybody's channel or your own. You don't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, pretty mellow. No, I'm in the midst of my 8 days of always on a live stream somewhere. So tomorrow is my channel for a change. I'm going to be doing a Harry Potter show. I got the 2 Matts on for that. So Thanatos and the Boy Who Had 7. And Alec spent part of the end of 2019 reading the entire series for the first time. So he's coming on to basically crap on it for us. And we're going to be trying to cast spells on him to make him really think it through better. But it should be a later show, like an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock my time, so 11 or 12 Eastern.
Oh, okay. So late night. So we'll see if I'm still awake for that, or if I have to watch the rewind. But
for Harry Potter fans, come check it out.
Nice. I will look forward to that. I have. Let's see. I'm going to try to do a Cash or Trash special sort of thing. Because I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Miles Mania. So I don't know if I'm doing that tomorrow night or Wednesday night before the Comic Core show. Because, there's basically been 2 or 3 Miles Morales books related, all different ones hitting the hot list for weeks now. And those books are going through the roof. So I'm just going to talk about that for a little bit. Probably tomorrow night, but I haven't actually set the stream yet. So I'm not sure I'm going to have all my notes and stuff ready tomorrow, so maybe Wednesday. And then my usual Saturday show, and I don't know beyond that. Wicked and Divine is going to be probably the next episode of this, and that won't be till July 7th. I think it's when we're doing that one. And then and then I don't know when we'll be back after that. So I'm not done a very good job of when I first set these up, I scheduled 4 or 5 and had them lined out, and I haven't done a very good job of that now. So I got to get back on scheduling. But and Old Wolf tells us to keep an eye out for Yarn Man hot book. So if you don't know what that is, you're not following the right people on Instagram. So that's all I can say. And with that, we're gonna get out of here. So thanks everyone, and we'll catch you later.